everyone, and welcome to the first episode of a brand new series, LOC Into the Spotlight. I am your host, Ben, and in this show, we will discuss different topics within the League of Champions, ranging from how the league started to the upcoming future plans. Today, I am joined by Commissioner and Analyst Andre Dabaghian, as well as Jackson Downs, the leading rebounder under 6 foot, and Jake DeGruccio, who somehow grabbed 22 rebounds in a game. Guys, how are you feeling today?
Feeling good today. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you for asking. Yeah, under 6 foot. Yeah, that seems to be a common thing within the league.
Jackson, you're awfully quiet over there. How are you, man?
Oh, the 2017 non-captain MVP is feeling pretty nice. Amped up, ready to talk with some of the other league's great players.
All right. Well, so this show, we're just going to go in depth onto certain topics regarding the league. And first, we are going to start with Season 1. So we're going to be talking with all things Season 1. And the first question I'd like to ask you guys is, what was it like going into the draft for the first time? Obviously, it was a huge event, very well planned. So what was it like going into it? Andre, we'll start with you.
You know, as the LC's first draft and as one of the first captains, it was just a lot of hype when we made the draft order. Like in school, it was just a lot of fun. And then when we finally got to Justin's house and then we finally did the whole thing, we recorded it. We did a lot of fun stuff. Yeah. Yep, the Shambi Center. And I just knew who I wanted to pick, and I knew I would get those guys. And if I didn't get those guys, well, it'd be a shame. But it was just a lot of fun, and it was just a lot of hype alongside it.
All right, Jackson, Jake, you were both players as opposed to Andre being a captain. What was it like for you guys?
I mean, it was very – thank you. It was very chaotic in the sense that this is like the first time any of us had ever done anything like this where we're all together and we all had to rely on one another as far as making sure everything went well, which for the most part it did. I mean, obviously you're going to have like issues with like scripts and whatnot, but aside from that, I think it was pretty successful. I mean, the main thing was everyone was having fun. That was it. Like, we wouldn't have done this if we didn't think we were going to have fun doing it. And I think it was a great way to like really get everybody to get to know each other, because that was a big thing. Some of the people at the season 1 draft weren't really familiar with others. So this is sort of like the gateway into like creating the family that is now the LOC in a sense. Yeah,
definitely. We pride ourselves on having fun. Jackson, your thoughts?
Yeah, the 2 words I like to use are anxious and excitement, because kind of like Jake, like everyone was like, we've been playing basketball for so long, and we're every game be like, oh, we won that game, and we're like, why don't we actually keep a tally of the games we're playing and actually draft teams, as long as Justin and Andre aren't on the same team.
Right, there were some rules.
Everyone was pretty anxious. We had the LOC, LOC rulebook. We had a few outlines, but everyone was really excited to get it going and get the teams going. And the fact that we actually had an official draft, and check out the draft video, Season 1 draft on Real Documentary channel. But it was probably, I wouldn't say the peak excitement. I think the peak excitement during Season 1, because we had a really successful Season 1. All the teams showed up, were pretty successful, but everyone was really hyped. And there was just a lot of great content. And we had the analysts at the draft, and it was just a really exciting time in LOC history. And we've come a long way since then.
So regarding the first season, we have a hypothetical about the draft order. There's a lot of scrutiny about it. And we are saying if the Cavs had Jackson instead of Tyler, and the Hornets had Tyler instead of Jackson, how would it be different? How would you guys think it would be different?
I'll let you take the floor on that one, Jackson, since
we'll start with Jackson.
We're talking about you.
You're directly involved.
So I might have a different answer for this. I personally don't think the leagues would have been that different. To start, I would have been on a team with Corey and Evan. And in that season, the Cavs were the worst team in the league, hence why Corey got axed as a captain and was the first overall pick in Season 2. Corey was okay that season, but Evan was really bad that season. He's come a long way, but he was like borderline, like you're playing 3-on-2. And then Tyler was solid. So, I mean, I personally think I'm a little bit better than Tyler, but I would have gotten that team. Maybe I could have gotten them to a 3 seed, but then I'm still playing the Hornets. And assuming if Justin doesn't stay healthy, it's a lot different. But I still think a team of Jack, Tyler, and Ben is better than a team of me, Corey, and Evan.
Who is Jack?
Who's Jack again?
And then if you get to Jack Stover.
Guys.
And then if you go into the finals, I think that the Celtics still win. Though that is a series that anything could have happened if I played a little bit better.
Yes, I do believe that. Yeah.
Pretty well, because it was a 3-game series. So I don't think it would have changed that much, in my opinion, being from that standpoint. Because I think I've improved a lot as a player. I think I was okay in season 1. I think I've improved.
I can definitely see what
Yeah.
Jackson's saying, but I don't know, because like he was saying, like there was a lot of like, if you want to look at the draft order, I wouldn't see the hypothetical teams being Tyler, Ben, Justin, Jackson, Evan, Corey, because Evan went 6th overall and then Jackson went last. So I think the switch wouldn't be Jackson and Tyler. I think the switch would be Jackson and Evan. I think Evan would have went last if we're going by like the rankings and how everyone consensuously agrees that Evan was like the worst one to end that season. So I think the teams would be Evan, Justin, and Ben, and then Jackson, Corey, and Tyler. In which case, I think the Cavs would have been. That's what I think the debate is, because you're taking Jackson and you're making him jump from last to 2nd overall, whereas it would made more sense at the time for him to have gone 6th overall, because it was around that time where like controversial draft agreements led to him going last. But
that is true.
I don't know about any of this as a commissioner.
If we take that, be that as it may, if we take that team of Corey, Jackson, and Tyler, I think that team has like a legitimate shot at winning the championship in that season.
I think Andre takes Evan.
Yeah.
7th pick.
Evan at the 7th.
No, I would not take.
No,
We're gonna get to that later.
The 7th pick was Sean. Regardless, that's not going to change.
Yeah, Jackson, I kind of disagree with you. Not gonna lie. I do believe that if we switched you and Tyler with the same exact roster, just you and Tyler difference, I think the Cavs would have been a much better team, because outside of Corey, they really had no defensive threat, offensive threat, playmaking, shooting, rebounding, anything. You are a literal rebounder. Like this might be the nicest thing that I'm going to say to you. I honestly thought you were really uncoordinated going into season 1, but like you grabbed a lot of rebounds.
That's just that's just so messed up. I'm kidding.
Oh, okay. Okay. But like you proved yourself like why you're worth like to be a higher draft pick, and like I feel like everyone just wanted to gang up on Justin and make you stick with Justin, but that wasn't fair. But like I think if you were on the Cavs, you would have given Corey an opportunity to possibly like go to the finals, like I believe Jake said, or whoever said it.
Who won most improved season 1? Does anyone know?
I don't think we had it.
I don't think there was an improved player too.
Improved.
Yeah, I don't.
Can't be.
I don't. Think
that's true.
When there's no season before.
Yeah,
that's true.
Well, thank you for that, guys. It's time for our first commercial break, and we would like to give a special thank you to Ball is Life for their continued support of the LOC, and we'll be right back. Welcome back, guys, to LOC Into the Spotlight, episode 1. I'm joined by Andre, Jackson, and Jake, and we're going to move on to some more season 1 LOC hard-hitting questions. We're getting right into it. So we were talking about the draft. We were talking about the draft before the break. We were sort of getting into it. And going off of that, who do you guys think was the biggest steal or biggest surprise of the draft? We'll start with you.
In my opinion, I'll start off. Oh, did you say
Jake?
Jake?
All right, Andre, if you want to start.
I wanted to, because I do believe Jackson was the biggest surprise to everybody, especially me. I had no idea that this kid can play basketball. I mean, I'm not saying he's the greatest player ever, but he can
You're
defend
really
himself,
coming for Jackson.
I can shoot threes now.
No one asked.
You can shoot threes now. All right, Andre, continue.
I was done. But like I do believe the biggest surprise was Jackson by far. I do think he was like a key piece in the Hornets' success. So
all right, Jake. Now, since Andre took your spot, you can go now.
At the time, I thought the biggest surprise in the draft, as far as like steals and busts and whatnot, I thought I was very surprised in the middle of the draft to see that I myself got picked before Sean Nicholas, because Sean Nicholas going into the draft was one of like the very like more so hyped up players. Like everyone had like a idea of like how good he was, and everyone thought he was like pretty decent. So to see myself go fourth and then him go fifth was just kind of surprising to me. But I guess at the end of the day, those picks don't really matter because like you could have interchanged them and still would have been the same result.
They were back to back.
But in hindsight, looking back now, I was surprised to see Tyler go second, just because
I was very surprised on that.
There was some players like I said, Sean, and I honestly didn't see Jackson as like a liability back then. I saw him as more like on the upper half of the talent level in the draft class, but those two going after Tyler kind of surprised me. No offense to Tyler, like he's good, but like I just think those two are better.
Yeah. All right, Jackson, you.
Yeah, I don't want to give myself too much credit. I'm not going to make myself the steal of the draft.
You're very humble. You're very humble.
I think that I was one of the main reasons that the finals got to 3 games, as well as a great team performance.
Yes, 100%.
And I thought, not a surprise. I was I was pretty shocked that the Celtics got 2 quality players in the middle of the draft. But my surprise is going to go to Sean, who was the 7th pick, who, even though I went after Evan, Sean also went after Evan. And while he may have regressed in later seasons, Sean was arguably the best player in the Bucks that season. A Bucks team that was the 3 seed, which I get there's 4 teams, but Sean was the 7th overall pick and was the best player on a team that wasn't the worst.
I might have to disagree with you on that. I think you're underlying.
He shot very well. I've watched through the videos. He's a very solid shooter. He was in the.
He is, but I think you're underlying the efforts that Cole puts in. He's a very solid player as well.
He's solid.
He was.
He's not a star player in the sense that he's not going to take over a game. And I think that season.
Is Sean going to take over a game?
Well, no, but I just think Sean played better. To start, Sean was in the 3-point contest, which I know doesn't take a lot. You have to hit 1-3, as Corey showed, to get into the 3-point contest. But he actually made as many threes as you in the preliminary round. And he just shot very well. I mean, if you go back and watch the film, he shot very well. And I think he actually stagnated when he became, like, the clear second option. If you can get him up shots, obviously he does have some defensive deficiencies.
Who are we talking about?
Sean.
Oh, okay.
The fact that he goes 7th, though, after Evan, in my opinion, was a shock after the season was over. Not at the time. I was like, oh, Sean's not fantastic, but he really had a solid season. I think he would have been non-captain MVP if I wasn't non-captain.
Yeah, that was definitely – season 1 was definitely
He did have a very good season. He was making shots that we hadn't really made – he's seen him make before.
He also worked really well with Cole and Dan. Or whoever was the third option at the time, because it didn't really seem very like certified, but yeah.
Yeah,
Jackson,
definitely. That team had some solid chemistry.
Jackson, you also mentioned that you were really surprised that the Celtics had 2 solid players, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think it's because everybody, like, I know Cole was setting his mind on taking Dan first overall, and then the entire league at the time was surprised at Corey taking Tyler second, who those 2 could have been arguably second-round picks.
I know. I mean,
talent. I got distracted.
The talent pool that was left in the middle of the draft was like people knew Sean was a good player, and this was pretty
exactly 100%.
So I think that the talent left because for those who haven't seen all the video, seen everything, Andre and Justin were intentionally given the last picks because they were decided as more skillful players.
We were
The
screwed.
fact that Andre had the 4th and 5th pick and was able to get
key.
2 quality players. Even in the finals, when Sean was replaced with Mark, the Celtics were still heavy favorites. So the fact that Andre gets to play aside a very solid rebounder and occasionally solid scorer in Jake, and then Mark, who is an okay player, he's better than in the first season he was better than Evan, just highlights how when you screw up, especially if you're not Andre or Justin and you screw up in the draft, you're pretty in trouble. You're in trouble.
Yeah.
That's a good point. And moving on with another draft question. We talked about the steal. We talked about a surprise. Who do you guys think was the biggest bust?
I mean, I think it's kind of like mutually agreed upon by everybody. Dan wasn't exactly as like great as everyone anticipated going into it.
He was
especially Cole.
He had some high expectations.
It's also a matter of like who else would be considered a bust.
So
right. I mean, yes, that's true.
The biggest bust award went to Dan, but I actually didn't vote for Dan. I actually voted for Evan because my definition of a bust, Dan sucked. But if you watch the film, Dan was like, he wasn't very good. but he was actually able to provide offensively, and he's an okay defensive
He
player.
was.
Evan was just so incredibly, if you watch the games, Evan just did not touch the ball. And not in the sense that in season 2 or 3, he didn't touch the ball because Justin didn't pass.
He didn't get the ball.
Corey and Tyler could not give him the ball. When Tyler iconically blocked Ben, that was because Evan just didn't go after the rebound and let Ben get the rebound. And this is no offense to Evan. He has improved vastly as a player.
He has improved a lot.
He's no longer the worst player in the league. And he actually grabs rebounds. He's a very solid defender now. Season 1, the fact that even in the pre-4-on-4 game, he was not very good and then still didn't go last. Paired on the fact that Corey grabbed an inconsistent player in Tyler, I just think that anything besides him being last has to be a bust. Because Dan Julius was okay at some points, and he was actually fairly good in the playoffs.
I mean, I don't think it's fair to give Evan the vote of biggest bust because everybody knew that he wasn't good. So you can't.
He still did go 6
okay.
overall.
This also brings up a point of the fact that I could agree with Jackson because not only was Evan the worst player, but Jackson and Sean, who both went after him, had really good seasons.
Much better.
So definitely when you put it in comparison, you can definitely attest to the fact that he
also when talking about Evan, we're not talking about bad. We're talking borderline unplayable.
Yeah,
He
at
didn't really know
times
what was going on.
At times, I thought he was a defender for the team he was playing for.
When he was on offense, he did sometimes think he was on defense and vice versa.
Yes.
So he was figuring it out. We'll give him credit. He's better now, much better now. But at the time, he was awful.
I think he wins most improved out of all 3
100%,
seasons.
100%.
In LOC season right now, Evan would not go last in the draft. He can shoot
He
the
would
ball.
not. He would be an early second-round pick. Honestly,
Basketball IQ problems. But at the end of the day, he's a fairly solid rebounder. He's a pretty decent jump shooter. In season 1, he had the tip block and he made 1 shot. That was the only highlights he had. He took 4 shots.
That was amazing.
His main highlights were him dancing in between.
Yes.
Points. Those were his main.
He knew his role. He knew his role.
He knew his role. He did know his role.
4 shots in 9 games in a 3-on-3 league is insane. That's
Jeff, I don't know if you mentioned this, but Evan's development defensively also. Not as a joke as he's the best cornerback in the game, but he has also developed a very good defensive game. I would not trust him with the ball on offense, but I'd say go lock up Justin, and I feel he would give me his best dang effort to do so.
He would.
Michael Kidd-Gilchrist with a 3-point shot now. He always came in. You always knew
he does have a 3-point shot, and it's so bizarre, but
it's
he
very
does have
bizarre.
that.
He knew he had defensive potential. The fact that he can actually shoot the ball now, and it is no longer the point where you can just Evan gets ball 3-point line and you can just go in and look for a rebound. Because I've done that one too many times, and now he's a fair and he's not shooting 50% from 3. He's shooting 20% from 3. But in the LOC, that's best in the league. That's
That's true.
In the first season, the 3-point contest had over half the league was under 10%. So he's got a fairly decent 3-point shot. He hit a game-winning layup in I think it was season 2. So he can hit his open layups, can play good defense, can hit threes. But in season 1, he did not have any of those things, and it was not. You knew he couldn't develop that in a week span before the games. So I think on Corey's part,
it was predictable. Yeah, and that was one of the faults of the Cavs team. All right, well, it's time for our second commercial break. Again, huge thanks to Ball's Life for their continued support since the birth of the LOC. Stay tuned. We got some more questions coming up. Welcome back into LOC Into the Spotlight. This is our first episode. We are breaking down the LOC, starting with Season 1 and getting back to some more questions. We've been talking about the draft a lot, and I'll ask you one more question about it. If you had to do a redraft for the Season 1, I'm interested to hear your guys' order. Andre, we'll start with you.
All right. This was very hard, actually, because now looking back at it, I know what everybody was capable of, and I feel like I'm a general manager, doing this, and let's say Cole, for example, he's a shorter guy, so he want to go height, but I don't know if he would want to go height, maybe,
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, so the Bucks had the first overall pick, and in my experience of watching the Bucks play Season 1, I thought that they would take Ben because I felt that they lacked a lot of shooting. And Ben was by far probably like the best shooter to be chosen from. And then I would go Ben. So it would go first Ben, then Jackson for the Cavs, Sean Nicholas Hornets. Celtics would take Jake and Tyler back to back. Cavs would take Dan. Bucks would take Sean, and Hornets would take Evan with the last overall pick.
All right, interesting. Definitely some interesting picks there. Jackson, what do you think? How do you think it would go?
So like Andre, I agree that the Bucks kind of needed a point guard, but like a better point guard. But from what I've seen in season 1, and this is no offense to Ben, Ben was really poor shooting the ball. So if it's not
he was, but I feel like if Ben was on the Bucks, he would have had a lot more chances to have the ball without having the star Justin Schomburger there.
Pre-injury Sean Nicholas is one of the most underrated players. I've played with pre-injury Sean Nicholas, and he is insane. I thought
Me too. He also took a lot of very bad shots and unnecessary shots as well.
That is true. That's one
So
of his
did
flaws,
everyone,
shot selection.
Yeah,
that's true.
What was worse was
okay.
I think Sean was the best player, and I think he would have complemented Cole fairly well. Because Cole isn't a player that takes a lot of shots. Second, I think at this point, Corey probably would have taken Jake. I think me and Jake are fairly interchangeable. But I think Corey would have taken Jake mainly because Corey wanted someone who's a little bit more aggressive, and Jake is a fairly aggressive player. And then Justin would have taken me third because I'm a fairly good player. I'm like a good player, but I'm not I fit well with star players. I'm looking at screens and stuff like that. So I think Justin would have liked that. And then fourth, I think Andre would have taken Ben because Ben's a fairly solid shooter, even though I just killed that. He is, compared to the rest of the league, I think he's decent.
I do agree with you because I feel like if I had Ben, he could have spaced out the floor a lot better. And I could have drove him the ball on the left side and then kicked it back out for wide open 3-pointer, and he probably would have missed, but who cares?
Ben is underrated at driving to the rim and rebounding. He's kind of like Russell Westbrook, except if everyone thought Russell Westbrook was a good 3-point shooter. He is a really solid rebounder and really solid at driving to the rim, but he's not a great 3-point shooter, even though he takes a lot. So I think he would have benefited. And then I think that Andre also would have added Tyler, because Tyler is one of those guys that doesn't really want to take over the game or shoot it. He's just he'll take his open shots. He's a pretty good jump shooter. And I think it would have been a good compliment to Andre's team. Sixth, I had the Cavs taking Dan Julius because they have Corey. Now they have Jake, their big man. He's a pretty solid big man. And so I think Dan Julius was the best available option left because we did all think Dan was a good player, and Dan did have his moments, especially before the draft. I think Sean would have stayed in the same spot at 7. I think the Bucks would have just had the same team, except they would have had Sean instead, and I think they could have competed for a 2 spot. And that leaves Evan at the 8, so it would have been back to the hypothetical question before if it was me, Justin, and Evan that Jake posed up. So I think that's
Jackson, I actually do think that the way that you planned out the LOC would have been a lot different, and I do wonder what would have happened if I feel like if Corey and Cole took the first 2 picks seriously.
In their minds they did, but it just didn't work out for them.
I think Dan was universally agreed upon as the most skillful player.
I don't think many people were surprised Dan went 1 at the time. I don't think.
Nobody was.
That's what you got to factor in. You got to factor in everyone's consensus of each other, which wasn't that a lot because not everyone was familiar with each other at the time. So you got to factor in the unknown.
Everything was new. Like during that time, everything was new.
We were all so young.
We had never played games this intense before. I can attest.
That's very true.
Games and you lose, and you're like, oh, so what? These are games where you're trying. It's only to 11, and we play 2 games in one day sometimes, but you're trying really hard. I did not want to lose the games.
The day that we played the finals was one of the most exhausted I've ever been.
Yeah, that day was tiring, and games
tears went into that series.
Yeah, and when it was 10-10, like regular season games, those last couple of possessions, I was putting my all into it, and. Jake, you're up, I think.
You didn't have experience with playing this intense.
Jackson, let him speak, please.
No, he could. It's not even good. I do have it written out, my draft order. So, putting in all the factors within the fact that, everyone didn't really know each other and each other's skill level as well as we do now. I have Cole picking Sean Nicholas first because I agree with Jackson. I think Sean was very, very underrated pre-injuries.
Pre-injury Sean is insane.
Yeah, no, he's like really good, like really good. Like he can lead a team. He could lead a team to like the finals. I really thought he could, which is why when Andre drafted him, I was like, oh my god, like that's like huge.
When I was, I'm sorry to interrupt, but like when I saw that Justin or like the first 3 players did not take Sean.
Yeah, I thought that was a steal of the draft.
That I was taking, like, it didn't matter like where I took Jake
exactly.
or Sean. I was like, I know I'm getting these 2 guys. I want these 2 guys. So that's what I took.
Exactly. So then I have Dan going to the Cavs because I feel like if Corey saw that Sean was off the board, I feel like Dan would be the next logical choice at the time. After that, I have Justin actually taking Jackson because Justin, like I said, is sort of like Andre and Sean, where he can like lead a team and do basically everything a team needs to get them to like go deep in the playoffs. But one thing that Justin's been consistent in like pushing his teammates for is rebounding. He's because there's taller players in the team than in the league than Justin, and Jackson is notorious for being one of the best rebounders in the league. So I feel like Justin would have thought, oh, all I really need to get me further is rebounding and like my skill set, and Jackson has rebounding and I have my skill set, so that would be the perfect 1-2 punch to get them far in the playoffs, which in turn it did because Jackson ended up on the Hornets regardless. But after that, I have Andre taking Ben in this as his first pick for the Celtics because Andre, I don't think I'm wrong in saying that you believe that Ben complements you very well, and the fact that like you have another outside shooter and both of you can drive when you need to be. And then I have you taking Tyler after that. But I think those are interchangeable because a lot of people thought Tyler was good at the time. I mean, he's good, but like a lot of people thought like he's
Tyler
better.
Let's be real.
Well, look, he went second overall. He went second overall. So he went second overall. So that has to be a factor into it. So yeah, the Celtics would be Andre, Ben, and Tyler, which is a very well-rounded team in the sense that like Tyler can do good at like everything, but just not great at like one specific thing. He's a very well-rounded player. Ben has the outside shooting that's what he's known for, and then Andre is like the leader of the team, obviously.
If Tyler's a third option, you're looking good.
Yeah, exactly.
That's true.
And Tyler can like heat up when he needs. Well, randomly. I wouldn't say when he needs to because like Tyler's notorious for going cold when in big games, but like he has the ability to heat up in random times. It's just sort of spontaneous.
That mid-range shot
can be deadly. That mid-range. I was just about to say that, Ben.
Exactly. And that means you guys have like an arsenal of shooting on all lengths of the floor. But
he had as many points as Corey.
That wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah, Corey did have an off season. I mean, it's hard when you're playing with 2 players.
So then I would go next, and I would go to the Cavs. So my team would be Corey, Dan, and myself. So I feel like I would take the hold on the rebounding, while Corey and Dan would both act as like
6 pick, right? 6 pick?
Yeah, 6 pick.
Okay.
I think Corey and Dan would act as like a well-rounded backcourt duo while I handle the front court, which I feel like would be interesting to see because I've never really played with Dan and Corey on my team and just us 3. But that'd be fun. I feel like it'd be fun, and I think it's like a team that you couldn't really like a team that could win big, but a team that could also lose like very crucial games. I feel like it's like a very average team. But then after that would be Sean to the Bucks, so that would be Cole and the 2 Seans, which would at that season Sean had a really good season when he played with Cole. So I mean, you don't really know.
That's a dangerous team with Sean playing the way he did.
Yeah, exactly. And if you have like if Cole is not the number one. Like Cole makes sure that he's not the number 1 option in scoring when he's on the team, which would perfectly complement Sean because Sean is a very like high usage player, and Sean Rowan isn't very much of a number 1 option as well. But like he could get open, he could go unnoticed in the court sometimes to the point where
he's a very good role player.
Yeah, exactly. He's like the perfect definition of a role player in our league at least. And then that leaves Evan with Jackson and Justin on the Hornets, which still proves as a liability that season, but if Jackson has a rebounding season like he is capable of doing, and Justin continues to game manage, I feel like that team could win a couple games. So that's how I think I would redraft if that was like everybody was in my control.
The thing that I think is interesting is that we all have Sean going 7th, but this is like before the season. If we did this because we were all basing our drafts off before season 1. If we did this at the end of season 1, I probably would have had Sean above Dan Julius, at least in terms
So if we did a season 2, is what you're saying.
Yeah. But season 2, you take into all the elements of all the new players being added, like Heat Check retiring, Mark and Jack and Casey all entering the league. And so I honestly think that the fact that he actually was hitting shots, he was better than Tyler. Obviously, he had a big progression. But I find it really interesting. We all talked Sean up, but before season 1, Sean was generally agreed upon as just not a very good player, and he had kind of like one of those crazy, I don't want to say one-off seasons, but he hasn't replicated it yet. And even his pickup games since then.
It can be argued that season was like a fluke, but like at the same time, it was still a really well performance.
Another thing I thought was interesting was the fact that you, Jackson, Jake, you had essentially the same draft, with the only flip being, Jake, you put yourself 6th for Dan, whereas Jackson put you 2nd and Dan 6th, which is interesting.
That is very interesting.
That flip-flop. How the team still went the same way, but a drop in your draft, in your own opinion.
At the time, I wasn't really seen as like a formidable opponent. I was seen as like being used as like for like my height and like my like body type. I was used as like a ball grabber. I wasn't really used as like a scoring option. And scoring options obviously go in the first round. And I just put myself where I put myself in the pick that I performed at. Like that I performed as like a 6th round pick in season 1. I didn't really score a lot, but I got rebounds when I needed to.
Yeah. Are you going here?
Like Jake, like when I drafted you, like I knew you weren't going to be the primary offensive player. I didn't know if you were capable of like a jump shot or anything like that, but like I knew like that I had a jump shot and I had a developed skill set in basketball, and I knew you were tall, you were athletic, you were lanky, and that if I grabbed a miss, you can be there to grab it and put it back up. And then with Sean, I took next. I knew that if I wasn't open, I can pass it to him, and then he can drive and then hit you down low or pretty much anything. But like I wanted you like my mindset going into the draft was draft big and draft like athletic. So like I think I got like the two like most like the biggest guys of the draft and like the 2 most athletic guys.
I think that's very fair. I definitely think that's fair. All right, well,
and I was very surprised as well. I was very surprised that I got.
It was a successful season for you. And speaking of that, we're going to move on to our final question, and we're ending it on a pretty big question that surrounded the season and played a big role in deciding the championship. Our question is, if Justin does not get hurt, plays the full season, and is there for the finals, so who do you guys, if both teams are fully healthy, because Sean also wasn't there for some games, if both teams are fully healthy, how do you think that series goes?
So since we were all involved in the finals games, there may, which is pretty incredible. We have 3 of the most decorated players. Actually, all 4 of us were involved in the finals.
All 4 of us were involved in that game.
So I think that the Hornets maybe win the regular season game again. Maybe. Regardless of what happens, I think that the Hornets, and if the Hornets without Justin could beat the Bucks, who were I think by far the only other team that had a chance, then I think that it would have easily been a Hornets-Celtics finals. So they would have been definitely meeting the finals. Mm-hmm. I think the Hornets win in 3 games. The Hornets won the first game 11-10, and Justin is notorious for being able to close out big games. Because to start off, the Hornets made it to 3 games without Justin. And while Jack is very good, me and Ben had very good finals, and Jack had a solid finals. If you put Justin there, maybe we don't play as well, but Justin is such an addition that I think he's at least plus 1.
Jack is good, but Jack is also no Justin.
I think Justin
is a good player.
If he plays then I think he's the MVP. I think we win the finals. I think it at least goes to 3 games. I think that stays consistent because the team were extremely even.
I think another thing we have to keep in mind is the battle between myself and Justin. Like,
it
I'm not
runs
one
deep.
Him and I have been playing together since 2nd grade, and then once we started this LOC, like we get like we made the rule that him and I can't be on the same team together because we are the 2 best players. I'm not trying to be like brag or anything, but like we are the 2 best.
It's a rule in the handbook.
Yeah. So with that in mind, like him and I had this unwritten rivalry, like that every time that him and I play, like it's gonna be a good game. And him and I never got that second game in the regular season because of some injury, right? I believe he didn't play.
Well, there was some time
he broke his skull.
And then he was injured.
But so him and I never had the chance to play a second time in the regular season. So him against me, the season 1 was just 1-0. But I do believe that I could have beaten him with myself, Jake, and Sean, in a 3-game series. It would have went to 3 games.
I think in the regular season, if Justin was healthy, they would have won that game, making them the 1 seed in the playoffs. But to say that they would win the finals is really up in the air. I really could not put either team ahead of the other, especially if Sean was healthy too. I don't know. I
it's-
really don't know.
it's a really
who would win.
big what
I
if.
can't like solidify my pick as to who would win
Yeah.
that series.
Because when we got Mark, like we lost a lot. Honestly speaking, like we lost a lot.
We lost a lot of ball handling. That's what we
Yeah,
lost.
we lost
lost a lot.
I had to take on a big
Every
role
facet.
in the ball. What?
You lost a lot in every facet of the game.
Pretty much. Like Sean was not a reliable shooter, but he can knock down a solid mid range or a
We all had him
three-pointer.
in
And
the
then
top 3 in our draft. When he,
Yeah.
if he's healthy, he's a more than he's a better second option. Because if you're comparing the teams, you versus Justin, Ben versus Sean, me versus Jake. Me versus Jake is generally agreed upon. We're similar. You versus Justin is generally agreed upon. You're similar. That Ben versus Sean battle, if Sean is healthy, that's a huge leg up. Instead of say Sean, if Sean's on 100%, I'm taking Ben in that battle. If Sean's 100%, I edge towards the Celtics. I don't know. Ben had a very good final. Ben struggled in the regular season, had a very good finals.
he did.
I mean, Jake does make a good point. I'm a little bit biased. I think that if we can get to 3 games, even with Jack, and then you guys having Mark, I mean, maybe. I mean, in the LOC, it's pretty obvious. Star players play king. If you have a star player, you're looking pretty good. There's very few teams that haven't succeeded without Justin or Andre. One of them being the season 2 Bulls, which I know Ben will get to in a later episode.
We'll definitely talk about season 2 in future episodes. Yeah, but yeah, I mean, it's definitely interesting to talk about these what if situations, the draft, just the excitement. Just the excitement around the LOC. Obviously, it's going to be a big part of our lives. And with that, I'd like to thank you guys for coming on to this first show. It was a lot of fun, and hopefully it goes on. That's all the time we have. And please make sure to like and subscribe. We're definitely coming out with more LOC content. And well, I'm Ben Bachrach. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time.
Peace out, guys.